In focus tonight, the state of newspapers in Utah. On Monday, the Salt Lake Tribune announced that in 2021, they would be dropping their daily printed edition. They are planning on printing a newspaper once a week, but will continue to have daily news posted on their website. Just the day after, the Deseret News followed suit, saying they will be limiting their printed run to once a week. Welcome back. In focus tonight, the state of newspapers in Utah. Joining us now through Zoom is Boyd Matheson. Boyd is the opinion editor and head of strategic reach for the Deseret News. Quite an announcement this week. Boyd, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, great to be with you, Rosie. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. Let's start with the joint operating agreement. For our viewers, explain what it was, why, when it ended, and why both newspapers decided to not have a daily printed edition any longer.
Yeah, so it really goes back to the 70s and the Newspaper Preservation Act. It simply allowed newspapers to combine their printing operations, which are a really big cost. And obviously, as that's been going on, it went on for 68 years between the Tribune and the Deseret News. It ends at the end of December of this year. And so the announcement was simply that we were not going to renew that operating agreement so that both companies can actually chart their own course into the future. You don't have to have the big, massive print machines that you did in the past. And so it really gives both organizations a chance to chart an independent course forward.
That makes total sense. So what do these changes mean for local news?
For the Deseret News, and for those who follow us, it is a beginning of a really new era in terms of how people will consume their news, and that's part of what we're doing. Is we're meeting our readers where they are, serving up things on their phones and their smart devices, and then also having some print opportunities as well. And that's a really important thing. You know, a lot of news organizations have tried to wring out every last penny of advertising in their print. And to do that, many of them have slashed their newsrooms and their real in-depth journalism. We're doing just the opposite. We're not going to let a daily print, which really only represents about 25% of our subscribers, prevent us from doing really rigorous, in-depth journalism, solutions journalism that will benefit the state and the country.
I think as journalists, one thing that we are good at is getting creative, and that's what I'm seeing coming from you guys. Can we talk about what the Deseret News will be putting out in addition to online journalism? What will the weekly and monthly editions look like?
Yeah, this is a really exciting thing for me because this is a really unique opportunity. Deseret News, in addition to what we do online, which is about 500 times what we do in print, but we do have a really vast following around the country. 75% of our subscribers are outside of the Wasatch Front. And so we're going to deliver both a robust weekly product, but then we're also going to have a monthly magazine, a news magazine. You could almost imagine a New Yorker, not from the West, but really for the rest of the country. And so it's really going to be about doing things in three main areas. It's going to be bold journalism, so big, bold ideas, strong opinions. It's going to be noble in that it's going to be about elevating the dialogue. It's not about the gotcha journalism that I know you detest as well, Rosie, but it's really about elevating and looking at it that way. And then finally, it's independent. We have this independent, rigorous journalism that is more important in the state and the nation than it's ever been. So while a lot of people have been kind of wringing their hands, mourning that we're at the beginning of the end of journalism and news, we really believe just the opposite. We think it's just the end of the beginning. Utah is uniquely positioned in the nation. People are looking to Utah for solutions on everything from immigration and how we deal with refugees to how we balance LGBTQ rights with religious liberty and a host of other things. And so there are great stories to be told. We're going to bring the brightest minds from around the country in to our readers here within the state. We're also going to export the great ideas and thinking and solutions that make Utah such an extraordinary place to live and work.
It's really about perspective. I love what you just said there. Let's take a long view of the newspaper industry. We're talking about contraction, the move to online distribution, the reliance on subscriptions. All newspapers are dealing with the same issues. Can you talk about how you guys have faced these issues in the past and why it made sense to go this way now?
Yeah, I think it really, obviously a lot of this has been coming for quite some time in the newspaper industry. And again, it's an interesting thing. We're actually kind of going back to our roots. I actually pulled out the original prospectus for the Deseret News, which was in June of 1850, if you can imagine that. They hauled that press across on the back of an oxen. And it said that we would do a weekly sheet that would cover everything from local issues to things that were happening around the world, to science and medicine, industry, and all of those fun things. And so we're really kind of going back to the future as one way to look at it. We're going back to our roots in terms of a weekly focus for the local edition, but then this monthly magazine and all of our online offerings, which will include, of course, podcasts and video, things served right up to our readers' inboxes and onto their digital devices. 24/7. There's no more shouting, "Stop the presses." It's 24/7 for the Deseret News, and again, a real focus on the in-depth journalism, not just reporting the top line of the news, but really getting down to the bottom line, to what it means to our country and what it means in our communities here in the state.
Boyd, about a minute left, and I know that you have really brought a positive perspective to this conversation. I'm just wondering, if you had a magic wand, what would you do right now to the industry of journalism? This is kind of something I ask every journalist, and I'm just wondering, like, you know, if in an ideal world, what would you do with a magic wand?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, as journalists, we have to get beyond this instant certainty, and we have to get back past the divisive nature of so many things. It's the era of gotcha journalism. People are exhausted by that, and it's having conversations like we're having tonight, Rosie, about principles, about issues that matter to real people in their families, their communities. And again, it's a great thing that Utah can model to the nation. We have this great economy. We have strong institutions of civil society with neighborhoods and communities coming together to do great things. And so, you know, it used to be that people looked at Utah as kind of this crossroads of the West. We really think it's a crossroads to the world. People are watching, and that's a great message to export. And journalists around the country can really take note in terms of what's happening here in the state, in terms of how we go about our business, how we get to solutions, and how we elevate the conversation in the process.
I agree. I'm very proud, and I look up to a lot of our journalism colleagues, especially in the state. All right, folks, you've been hearing from Boyd Matheson, opinion editor and head of strategic reach for the Deseret News. Boyd, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Rosie.